Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova and watched the stars through the main window. His ship moved quietly through space toward a system humans had never seen before. The year was 2387, and Earth had finally built ships that could travel faster than light. Jake felt excited about meeting aliens for the first time in human history. The Terra Nova carried 300 people, including scientists, engineers, and soldiers. Dr. Lisa Parker worked in the science lab studying data from their sensors. She had spent her whole life dreaming about this moment. Lieutenant Amy Foster checked the weapons systems, even though everyone hoped they would not need them. The ship also carried supplies for the Human Research Station on Kepler 442b, where 2,000 colonists lived and worked. Jake had been a ship captain for 20 years, but this mission felt different. Earth's government had chosen him carefully for first contact. He knew how to stay calm under pressure and make good decisions quickly. The Terra Nova approached the edge of the Kepler system, where human sensors had detected signs of alien technology. Dr. Parker called Jake to the science lab. She pointed at her computer screen showing strange energy readings. The patterns looked artificial and very advanced. Parker explained that the aliens must have technology far beyond what humans could build. Jake nodded and ordered his crew to prepare for contact. Everyone felt nervous but excited. The first alien ship appeared on their sensors like a ghost materializing from nothing. It was huge and shaped like a crystal with smooth surfaces that reflected starlight. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful and frightening at the same time. The alien ship moved toward them with impossible grace. Lieutenant Foster reported that the alien vessel had weapons, but they were not powered up yet. Jake opened a communication channel using radio waves, laser signals, and mathematical patterns. The aliens responded within minutes, using perfect English. A voice spoke through the ship's speakers with no emotion at all. The voice said they were called Zephirians, and they ruled this part of space. Jake introduced himself and explained that humans came in peace to explore and learn. The Zephirian voice asked many questions about human technology, population, and military strength. Jake answered honestly because he wanted to build trust. The aliens seemed very interested in human biology and how long humans lived. They asked about human diseases and what could kill them. Jake found these questions strange, but answered them anyway. The Zephirian ship came closer, and Jake could see it was even larger than he first thought. The alien voice invited a small group from the Terra Nova to visit their vessel. Jake chose Dr. Parker, Lieutenant Foster, and 2 other officers to come with him. They put on their best uniforms and took a shuttle to the alien ship. The inside of the Zephirian vessel looked like a museum made of crystal and metal. Everything glowed with soft light, and the air felt clean and cool. The Zephirians themselves surprised Jake completely. They were tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. They wore robes that seemed to float around their bodies. Their movements were smooth and quiet like dancers. The Zephirian leader called himself High Commander and spoke in the same emotionless voice they had heard on the radio. He showed them around his ship and explained some of their technology. Jake tried to be friendly and share information about human culture. The High Commander listened, but his expression never changed. His black eyes studied the humans like they were insects under a microscope. Dr. Parker asked about Zephirian history and science. The High Commander explained that his people had traveled between stars for thousands of years. They had met many alien species and studied them all. Jake asked what happened to those other species, but the High Commander did not answer directly. He only said that knowledge required sacrifice and that superior beings had responsibilities. After several hours, the humans returned to their ship. Jake felt uncomfortable about the meeting, but could not explain why. Dr. Parker said the aliens seemed very advanced, but also very cold. Lieutenant Foster reported that she had seen weapons inside. The alien ship that could destroy planets. The Zephirians had technology that made human weapons look like stone tools. The Terra Nova continued toward Kepler 442b to deliver supplies to the research station. Jake tried to contact the colonists by radio, but got no response. This worried him because the station always maintained communication schedules. Dr. Parker checked their sensors and found no ships or debris around the planet. Everything looked normal from a distance. As they got closer, Jake saw that something was terribly wrong. The research station was gone. Where buildings should have stood, they found only empty ground and burned areas. The landing pads were melted and twisted. No humans answered their calls, and their sensors detected no life signs anywhere on the planet. Jake ordered a landing party to search for survivors. Lieutenant Foster led 20 soldiers to the surface, while Dr. Parker analyzed the destruction. The damage looked fresh, maybe only days old. Whatever had attacked the station had weapons that could turn metal into liquid and concrete into dust. The soldiers found no bodies, but they did find something worse. In the ruins of the main laboratory, Dr. Parker discovered a hidden recording device that had survived the attack. The device contained Dr. Lisa Coleman's final message from 3 days earlier. Jake played the recording on the ship's main screen, and everyone gathered to listen. Dr. Coleman's voice was full of fear as she spoke. She explained that the Zephirians had arrived without warning and demanded that all humans surrender. When the colonists tried to negotiate, the aliens began taking people away. Coleman said they took the children first, then the elderly, then anyone who looked sick or weak. The aliens said humans were perfect subjects for their biological experiments. The recording showed Coleman hiding as alien soldiers searched for her. She whispered that the Zephirians planned to use humans to test new diseases and weapons. They wanted to see how much pain humans could survive and how their bodies would react to different tortures. Coleman's voice broke as she described seeing her friends loaded onto alien ships like cargo. The message ended with Coleman begging Earth to stay away from the Zephirians. She said the aliens were planning to demand Earth's surrender within 30 days. If humans refused, the Zephirians would destroy every human world they could find. Coleman's last words were a warning that the aliens saw humans as nothing more than useful animals for their experiments. Jake felt his hands shake as the recording ended. Around him, his crew stood in shocked silence. Dr. Parker was crying, and Lieutenant Foster looked ready to fight. Jake realized that humanity's first contact with aliens had become their worst nightmare. The Zephirians were not explorers or traders, or even conquerors. They were something much worse. 3 days later, a massive Zephirian fleet appeared near Earth. The High Commander's voice reached every human communication device on the planet. His message was simple and terrifying. Humans had 30 standard days to surrender their homeworld and submit to Zephirian rule. If they refused, Earth would be sterilized and all humans would be hunted down across the galaxy. The High Commander explained that humans would make excellent test subjects because they felt pain intensely and died slowly. Zephirian scientists needed biological data that only live experiments could provide. Humans should feel honored to serve a superior species in this way. The aliens would take good care of their new laboratory animals. Jake listened to the ultimatum from his ship, near Earth's moon. Around him, space filled with human military vessels preparing for war. But Jake knew human weapons were no match for Zephirian technology. The aliens had made humanity angry, but they had also made themselves the most powerful enemy humans had ever faced. The news of the Zephirian ultimatum reached Earth like a shockwave that changed everything. Within hours, every television station and internet channel carried the same terrible message. Aliens had destroyed a human colony and now demanded Earth's complete surrender. Most people felt terrified at first, but then something unexpected began to happen across the planet. President Mary Johnson called an emergency meeting of world leaders in Geneva. Representatives from every nation gathered in the same room for the first time in decades. Old enemies sat next to each other and forgot their ancient grudges. Russian generals worked alongside American admirals. Chinese scientists shared data with European researchers. The species that had spent centuries fighting each other suddenly had a common enemy. President Johnson addressed the United Earth Assembly with words that every human would remember forever. She stood at the podium with cameras broadcasting to billions of people around the world. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the steel underneath. She said the Zephirians had made a critical mistake when they decided to test their weapons on human families. They had made humanity angry, and now they would learn what that meant. Admiral Kevin Stone received command of Earth's combined military forces within 24 hours. He was a veteran of 3 wars and had spent his entire career preparing for battles in space. Stone had never imagined fighting aliens, but he understood that this war would be different from any conflict in human history. The enemy had superior technology, but Stone believed humans had something more important: Dr. Ryan Clark led a team of the world's best scientists in a desperate race to understand Zephirian technology. They studied every piece of data from Jake Morrison's encounter and analyzed the recordings from the destroyed colony. Clark worked 18 hours a day trying to find weaknesses in alien weapons and defenses. He knew human survival depended on closing the technology gap as quickly as possible. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster organized rescue missions to save any humans still alive in Zephirian prison camps. Intelligence reports suggested the aliens were keeping captives on several worlds for their experiments. Foster assembled teams of the most skilled soldiers from every nation's special forces. They would need to strike fast and hard before the Zephirians could kill their prisoners. The transformation of human society happened faster than anyone thought possible. Factories that made cars began producing spacecraft engines. Companies that built computers started working on weapons guidance systems. Farmers increased food production to feed the growing military. Children as young as 12 volunteered to help in factories and hospitals. Humanity united like never before in its history. Religious leaders from every faith held joint ceremonies praying for human victory. The Pope spoke alongside Buddhist monks and Islamic scholars. They all agreed that defending innocent life was a sacred duty. Churches became recruitment centers and temples served as supply depots. Even people who had never believed in anything found themselves praying for their species' survival. News reports showed the same scenes in every major city around the world. Long lines of volunteers waited to join the military. Retired soldiers came out of retirement to train new recruits. Civilians donated money, supplies, and anything else that might help the war effort. Protesters who had once demanded peace now carried signs calling for alien blood. The Zephirians had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping for too long. Dr. Clark's research team made their first breakthrough after working for 2 weeks without rest. They discovered that Zephirian shields used a specific energy, frequency, that human sensors could detect. This meant human weapons might be able to penetrate alien defenses if they fired at exactly the right moment. Clark shared this information with weapons designers who began modifying every missile and laser cannon in Earth's arsenal. Admiral Stone divided Earth's forces into 3 main groups. The first would defend the solar system using every ship and weapon platform available. The second would launch surprise attacks on Zephirian outposts to rescue human prisoners. The third would search for alien weaknesses and gather intelligence about their technology and tactics. Stone knew humans would need every advantage they could find. The Zephirians sent more messages during the second week after their ultimatum. They described in detail what they planned to do with human test subjects. Children would be used to study how young bodies reacted to different diseases. Adults would test the effectiveness of new torture techniques. Elderly humans would help. Aliens understand how age affected pain tolerance. The messages were meant to terrorize humans into surrender, but they had the opposite effect. Lieutenant Commander Foster launched the first rescue mission toward a Zephirian research facility near Alpha Centauri. Her team used a modified cargo, ship disguised as space debris, to approach the alien base without detection. Intelligence suggested they were holding 50 human prisoners from the destroyed colony. Foster knew the Zephirians would kill the captives if they detected any rescue attempt. The rescue team found something worse than they had expected when they infiltrated the alien facility. The Zephirians had turned an entire asteroid into a laboratory for biological experiments. Human prisoners were kept in cages like animals and subjected to tests that no living being should endure. Foster's soldiers found children who had been infected with alien diseases and adults who had been surgically modified for research purposes. Foster's team killed every Zephirian in the facility and rescued 37 humans who were still alive. The survivors told horrible stories about what they had experienced. The aliens treated humans like they were objects rather than living beings. They felt no emotion when humans screamed in pain and showed no mercy when prisoners begged for death. The rescued colonists provided valuable intelligence about Zephirian psychology and methods. Dr. Ryan Clark interviewed the rescued prisoners to learn more about alien technology. He discovered that Zephirian medical equipment could heal almost any injury, but they chose to let humans suffer instead. Their computers contained detailed files about human biology that were more complete than anything Earth's scientists had produced. The aliens had been studying humanity for years before making contact. President Johnson made another speech to the world after hearing reports from the rescue mission. She announced that the Zephirians had declared war on all human life and that Earth would respond with total commitment to victory. Every resource and every person would be dedicated to destroying the alien threat. Johnson promised that humanity would make the Zephirians regret ever learning that humans existed. Admiral Stone received reports that more alien ships were gathering near Earth's outer planets. The Zephirians seemed confident that humans would surrender when they saw the size of their fleet. Stone smiled grimly as he looked at his own forces preparing for battle. The aliens had superior numbers and technology, but they did not understand what they were fighting. Humans had something that no other species possessed. Dr. Clark's team made another breakthrough when they analyzed Zephirian communication systems. They learned how to intercept alien messages and decode their military transmissions. This gave human forces advance warning about enemy movements and attack plans. Clark realized that the aliens were so confident in their superiority that they barely bothered to encrypt their communications. The transformation of human industry continued at an incredible pace. Orbital shipyards that had taken years to build were now constructed in weeks. New weapons based on alien technology rolled off production lines faster than anyone thought possible. Volunteer workers labored around the clock to give their species every advantage in the coming war. Foster organized more rescue missions as intelligence identified additional Zephirian research facilities. Each mission brought back more survivors and more information about alien capabilities. The rescued humans also brought back something else that proved even more valuable. They brought back hatred that burned hotter than any star. They wanted revenge against the species that had tortured their families and friends. As the 30-day deadline approached, humanity prepared for the largest war in its history. Millions of ships and billions of soldiers stood ready to fight. Every human world had become an armed fortress. Children learned to use weapons alongside their school books. Elderly citizens volunteered for dangerous missions behind enemy lines. The species that had once fought over resources and territory now fought for its right to exist. The Zephirians had expected to find a weak and divided species that would beg for mercy. Instead, they had awakened a nightmare that would haunt them until their dying day. Humans had learned to hate with a purity that the cold and emotionless aliens could never understand. The greatest predator in the galaxy was about to discover that they were no longer the hunters. The 30-day deadline passed without humanity's surrender, and the Zephirians came to Earth expecting an easy victory. Their massive fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel near the moon, like sharks smelling blood in the water. The alien High Commander sent one final message demanding immediate submission or total destruction. President Johnson's response was broadcast to every ship in both fleets. She simply said the word "no" and ordered Admiral Stone to begin the attack. The Battle of Luna began when Captain Tony Martinez led the first wave of human ships directly into the center of the Zephirian formation. His squadron consisted of modified mining vessels equipped with kinetic bombardment systems and nuclear missiles. The aliens had expected humans to hide behind their planet's defenses, but instead found them charging forward with weapons blazing. Martinez's ship, the New York, rammed directly into a Zephirian cruiser before exploding in a ball of nuclear fire. The alien vessel's shields absorbed most of the damage, but the impact disrupted their weapon systems long enough for other human ships to target their weak points. The Zephirians discovered that humans fought differently than any species they had encountered before. Admiral Stone watched the battle from his command ship and saw something that made him smile despite the terrible odds. Human pilots were not just following orders, but adapting their tactics in real time based on what they learned about alien technology. When energy weapons proved ineffective, they switched to kinetic projectiles. When shields blocked missiles, they used ramming attacks. When nothing else worked, they used their ships as suicide bombs. The Zephirians had superior technology, but they fought like machines following predetermined programs. They could not understand why humans kept attacking even when their weapons were useless. Every time the aliens thought they had human tactics figured out, the humans changed their approach. Desperation and creativity proved more valuable than advanced shields and energy cannons. Dr. Susan Wright's intelligence team achieved a major breakthrough during the second day of battle. They cracked the Zephirian communication codes and began intercepting enemy transmissions. Wright discovered that the aliens were confused and frightened by human unpredictability. Their commanders could not understand why humans continued fighting, when logic suggested they should surrender. The intercepted messages revealed something even more important. The Zephirians had prison camps on 3 different star systems where they were holding thousands of human captives. Wright immediately shared this intelligence with Lieutenant Commander Foster, who began planning simultaneous rescue operations. The aliens would learn that humans never abandoned their own people, no matter what the cost. Commander Rick Adams developed new combat doctrines based on psychological warfare rather than superior firepower. His pilots began deliberately leaving, some enemy ships damaged but not destroyed. The surviving Zephirians returned to their fleets carrying stories about human savagery and unpredictability. Adams knew that fear could be more effective than any weapon. The tide of battle began to turn when human engineers figured out how to overload Zephirian shield generators using coordinated attacks. Multiple ships would target the same enemy vessel, at precisely timed intervals, causing the alien defenses to collapse. Once their shields failed, the Zephirians proved surprisingly vulnerable to conventional human weapons. Foster launched her rescue operations while the main battle continued around Earth. Her teams struck 3 prison camps simultaneously using information from Wright's intelligence network. The aliens had expected attacks on their military bases but never thought humans would waste resources saving prisoners. This gave Foster's soldiers the element of surprise they needed. The rescue teams found horrors that made even veteran soldiers sick to their stomachs. The Zephirians had not just imprisoned humans, but had subjected them to experiments that defied all concepts of mercy or decency. Children had been infected with alien diseases to test human immune responses. Adults had been dissected while still alive to study human anatomy. Elderly prisoners had been tortured until they died just to measure pain tolerance. Foster's soldiers killed every Zephirian they found in the prison camps without taking any prisoners themselves. The aliens had shown no mercy to human families, so they deserved no mercy in return. The rescued captives provided detailed information about Zephirian research methods and revealed the locations of additional prison facilities throughout their territory. Dr. Wright analyzed the rescued prisoners' reports and made a disturbing discovery. The Zephirians had been studying humanity for decades before making official contact. They had monitored human radio transmissions and observed human behavior from hidden bases in distant star systems. The aliens had planned their attack, carefully choosing the moment when humans had just developed faster-than-light travel, but before they could build adequate defenses. The psychological impact of the prison camp discoveries spread throughout the human fleet like wildfire. Soldiers who had been fighting for survival now fought for revenge. Pilots who had shown mercy to disabled enemy ships now destroyed everything that moved. Engineers worked around the clock to develop new weapons, specifically designed to cause maximum pain to Zephirian biology. Adams refined his psychological warfare tactics as the battle continued. Human ships began broadcasting recordings of Zephirian screams and death sounds on alien communication frequencies. They transmitted images of destroyed alien vessels and messages promising that every Zephirian would die slowly and painfully. The cold and emotionless aliens began to experience fear for the first time in their species' history. The Zephirians attempted to retreat from Earth after losing half their fleet, but Admiral Stone ordered a complete pursuit. Human forces followed the aliens across 3 star systems, destroying every ship and base they could find. The species that had come to Earth as conquerors found themselves being hunted like criminals across their own territory. Captain Martinez had died in the first attack, but his sacrifice inspired thousands of other humans to similar acts of heroism. Pilots routinely flew suicide missions against high-value targets. Engineers volunteered for dangerous boarding actions against enemy ships. Even civilian volunteers piloted cargo vessels into alien formations loaded with explosives and radiation weapons. Dr. Wright's intelligence network expanded as more Zephirian positions were captured. Her teams interrogated alien prisoners using methods the Zephirians had developed for human subjects. The aliens, who had shown no emotion while torturing children, screamed and begged when they experienced the same treatment. Wright felt no sympathy for them whatsoever. The human fleet discovered additional Zephirian research facilities as they pushed deeper into alien space. Each facility contained evidence of crimes against humanity that went back for years. The aliens had been capturing human space travelers and missing colonists long before their official ultimatum. They had used these early prisoners to perfect their torture techniques. Adams developed his most effective psychological weapon when he began leaving deliberate survivors from Zephirian defeats. These survivors were allowed to escape after witnessing the complete destruction of their fleets and the horrible deaths of their comrades. They returned to their home world, carrying tales of human monsters who showed no mercy and took no prisoners. Foster's rescue operations expanded as intelligence revealed the scope of Zephirian crimes. She led missions to 17 different prison facilities and saved over 3,000 human captives. Each rescue provided more intelligence about alien technology and psychology. More importantly, each rescue provided more evidence of why the Zephirians deserved complete extermination. The aliens attempted to negotiate a ceasefire after losing most of their military forces, but President Johnson refused to consider any terms short of unconditional surrender. The Zephirians had demanded Earth's submission, and now they would receive humanity's answer in the form of burning ships and destroyed worlds. There would be no peace while any of them remained alive. Admiral Stone's forces surrounded the Zephirian homeworld after 6 months of constant warfare. The alien planet's defenses had been built to repel invasion, but not to withstand a siege. Human ships cut off all supply lines and began systematic bombardment of military targets. The species that had considered themselves the galaxy's supreme predator now cowered in underground shelters. Wright's intelligence teams analyzed captured Zephirian databases and made a chilling discovery. The aliens had detailed files on dozens of other species they had destroyed or enslaved over the centuries. Humanity was not their first victim, but would be their last. Every alien civilization that had submitted to Zephirian demands had eventually been used up in experiments and discarded like laboratory waste. The revelation that the Zephirians were serial destroyers of entire species eliminated any remaining human sympathy for their enemies. This was not a war between two civilizations, but an extermination of parasites who fed on the suffering of other living beings. Humanity had become the immune system of the galaxy, and the Zephirians were the disease that needed to be eliminated. Foster led the final assault on the Zephirian homeworld's surface using weapons and tactics developed specifically for urban warfare against alien opponents. Her soldiers had learned. 2 years after the first attack on the human colony at Kepler 442b, the last Zephirian military forces surrendered on their homeworld. General Patricia Young stood in the ruins of the alien capital and implemented Protocol Omega, which had been developed specifically for this moment. Humanity would not simply defeat the Zephirians, but would erase them completely from existence as if they had never existed at all. The protocol represented something new in human warfare. Previous conflicts had been about territory or resources, or political power, but this was about justice on a scale never before attempted. The Zephirians had tried to turn humanity into laboratory animals, so humanity would return the favor in ways the aliens could never have imagined. Every trace of their civilization would be systematically destroyed. Dr. Alex Turner led specialized teams whose only job was eliminating Zephirian culture and history from their conquered worlds. His soldiers used advanced scanning equipment to locate every piece of alien art, literature, and scientific achievement. Museums were emptied and their contents destroyed. Libraries were burned and their databases wiped clean. Monuments were demolished and their rubble scattered across empty space. Captain Helen Ross commanded the orbital platforms that methodically destroyed every significant Zephirian building and landmark. Her crews had detailed maps showing locations of temples, government buildings, universities, and cultural centers. Each target was eliminated with precision weapons that left nothing but dust and memories. The species that had lasted for thousands of years would leave no physical trace of their existence. The few surviving Zephirian leaders attempted to negotiate some form of surrender that would preserve their people's legacy. They offered to serve humanity as slaves in exchange for allowing some record of their civilization to survive. The human response came directly from Admiral Stone, who had supervised the entire war effort from beginning to end. Stone's message to the remaining Zephirians became legendary among human military forces. He told them they had wanted to study humanity as laboratory subjects, and now their wish was being granted. They would learn exactly what happened when someone made humans angry. The lesson would be thorough and permanent, but they would not live long enough to apply what they learned. Dr. Turner's cultural destruction teams worked with scientific precision to eliminate every trace of Zephirian achievement. They studied alien literature long enough to understand it completely, then destroyed every copy they could find. They analyzed Zephirian art until they could appreciate its beauty, then systematically burned every painting and sculpture. They learned alien music well enough to hum their songs, then erased every recording. The systematic destruction went far beyond physical objects to include digital information and genetic material. Human computer specialists wiped Zephirian databases and destroyed their backup systems. Biological warfare experts eliminated alien seed banks and specimen collections. Even the Zephirian language itself was being forgotten, as the last native speakers died in human prison camps. Captain Ross expanded her operations to include every Zephirian colony and outpost throughout their former territory. Her fleet visited dozens of alien worlds and methodically destroyed anything that could preserve their culture for future generations. Archaeological sites were bombed until nothing remained. Ancient ruins were reduced to component atoms. Historical records were deleted from every database. The human soldiers performing these missions had been chosen carefully for their psychological stability and commitment to the task. Many had lost family members in the original Zephirian attacks or had witnessed the alien prison camps firsthand. They understood that mercy toward the Zephirians would be betrayal of every human who had suffered at alien hands. General Young established processing centers where surviving Zephirians were cataloged and studied before being eliminated. Human scientists wanted to understand alien biology and psychology completely before the species became extinct. This knowledge would help humanity identify and deal with similar threats in the future. The Zephirians had become unwilling research subjects in their own extermination. Dr. Susan Wright's intelligence teams worked around the clock to locate every hidden Zephirian facility and secret base. The aliens had tried to preserve some of their culture and technology in concealed locations, but human detection methods proved too sophisticated to fool. Every hidden archive was found and destroyed. Every secret laboratory was eliminated. Every attempt to preserve their legacy was thwarted. The psychological impact of complete cultural erasure proved devastating to the remaining Zephirian population. Many aliens committed suicide rather than watch their entire civilization disappear. Others went insane as they realized that nothing they had ever created or accomplished would survive their species' extinction. The cold and emotionless beings finally learned what despair felt like. Human forces discovered that the Zephirians had hidden backup copies of their culture and scientific knowledge on dozens of different worlds. Dr. Turner's teams hunted down every cache using information extracted from alien prisoners. Each discovery led to more locations in an endless chain that stretched across multiple star systems. Humanity proved more thorough in destruction than the Zephirians had ever been. In conquest, the aliens made desperate attempts to bargain for some preservation of their legacy by offering advanced technology and scientific secrets. Human negotiators pretended to consider these offers while extraction teams gathered every piece of valuable information. Once humanity had learned everything useful, the Zephirian databases were wiped clean and their creators were eliminated. Captain Ross's bombardment operations evolved into an art form dedicated to complete obliteration. Her crews developed new weapons specifically designed to destroy Zephirian architecture and cultural artifacts. They learned to target the exact frequencies that would shatter alien crystal formations. They perfected techniques for vaporizing alien metals and organic compounds. The most disturbing aspect of the cultural destruction was how methodically human forces approached their task. Teams worked in shifts around the clock to ensure nothing was overlooked. Specialists studied alien psychology to understand what would cause them the most pain before destroying it. The species that had shown no mercy to human families received the same consideration from their conquerors. Dr. Turner made a particular point of eliminating Zephirian children's literature and educational materials. He explained to his teams that preventing alien culture from being passed to future generations was essential for complete erasure. Every children's book was burned. Every educational game was destroyed. Every story that might preserve alien values was eliminated forever. General Young expanded Protocol Omega to include biological erasure as well as cultural destruction. Human genetic engineers developed viruses specifically designed to target Zephirian DNA and prevent successful reproduction. The alien species would not only lose their culture, but would become physically incapable of continuing their bloodline. The remaining Zephirian civilians watched helplessly as their entire world disappeared around them. Human soldiers forced them to witness the destruction of their most sacred sites and treasured possessions. Every alien was made to understand that their species' punishment extended far beyond death to include complete obliteration from history. Wright's intelligence teams discovered that some Zephirians had tried to preserve their culture by hiding information in quantum storage devices scattered throughout space. Human scientists developed new detection methods to locate these devices and destroy them before they could be recovered. Even the most advanced alien technology proved inadequate to preserve anything from human thoroughness. The cultural destruction. Teams began competing with each other to see who could eliminate Zephirian heritage most completely. They kept detailed records of how many artifacts each team destroyed and how many cultural sites each unit obliterated. The systematic erasure had become a source of pride among human forces. Captain Ross received reports that some alien survivors had tried to escape to distant galaxies carrying cultural information with them. Her pursuit fleets followed these refugees across impossible distances and destroyed them before they could establish new colonies. Not even exile would allow the Zephirians to preserve their legacy. The final phase of cultural destruction involved eliminating every trace of the Zephirian language from human records and databases. Linguists who had learned to speak alien languages were required to forget them completely. Translation programs were deleted, and language learning materials were destroyed. Within months, no human would remember how to pronounce a single Zephirian word. Dr. Turner's teams completed their mission after working for 3 years to eliminate every trace of alien culture. Their final report listed millions of destroyed artifacts, thousands of obliterated sites, and countless eliminated cultural traditions. The Zephirian civilization that had lasted for millennia had been reduced to empty space and scattered atoms. General Young stood in the empty field where the Zephirian capital had once stood and declared Protocol Omega complete. The species that had tried to make humans into laboratory animals had been systematically erased from existence. Future generations would never know they had existed because 500 years had passed since humanity first encountered aliens in the Kepler system, and the galaxy had become a very different place. Ambassador Claire Bennett represented Earth at the Galactic Council, where 47 different species gathered to pay tribute to human supremacy. The great meeting hall on the neutral world of Haven buzzed with nervous energy as alien delegates carefully avoided saying anything that might anger their human overlords. The transformation of galactic civilization had been so complete that most species could not remember what life had been like before humans arrived. Trade routes operated under human supervision. Colonial expansion required human approval. Even wars between alien civilizations needed permission from Earth before they could begin. Humanity had become the undisputed master of known space. Ambassador Bennett listened to reports from various alien worlds with the bored expression of someone who had heard similar speeches thousands of times before. The Corellian delegate promised increased mineral shipments to human colonies. The Vastan ambassador offered to share new agricultural techniques with human farmers. The insectoid hive queen requested permission to establish a new breeding colony in an unused star system. Professor Danny Rodriguez taught xenohistory at the Mars Colonial Academy, where the best young humans learned about their species' rise to galactic dominance. His students sat in comfortable chairs in a lecture hall overlooking the red planet's terraformed landscape. Today's lesson covered the early days of human expansion and the mysterious enemy that had started it all. Rodriguez pointed to a holographic display showing the timeline of human conquest.